Hello and welcome to What's Up in Connecticut. I'm your host, Brenda Peterson, and this week we are traveling to Guilford, Connecticut to meet with apiarist Jim Clinton of Farm River Honey. Jim has been keeping bees for close to 20 years and provides much of the honey for the shoreline area. So join me while I get the buzz on bees. Hi Jim, thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with us about beekeeping in Connecticut. I've watched a little bit of your video and it's rather fascinating, and I know most of the common questions have already been asked, so I'll try not to repeat them. Can you tell us about what got you interested in bees?
Yes, Brenda. Thank you for having me. I've been beekeeping for about 20 years, and pretty much it was God inspired. I just got the idea, and I went with it. I was sitting in the Connecticut Beekeepers Association meeting for about 3 years, and this older gentleman finally on a rainy day sat next to me, and we got to talking, and I became his arms and his legs, and that's how I originally started to work the bees. And I went from 2 hives until now, where I've got approximately 90 hives.
That's fascinating. That's great. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to manage the several millions of bees that you have?
It's basically it's been a work in process. They have certain behaviors that they show during certain periods of time of the year. In the springtime, I can't just walk up to the hive without being protected. Mm-hmm. However, when there's a nectar flow going on and the nurse bees are all taking care of the young, I can pretty much go up there in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts, and they're just, that's all. They have the focus of their keeping their society going,
yeah.
And that's it.
It's pretty amazing, because just as somebody who's not familiar with that process, that would be absolutely terrifying to me. So it's really interesting that's what you have to do. Well, thanks for telling us a little bit about where you're headed with in terms of your future with the beeswax. I know that you sell a lot of honey in stores, specifically along the shoreline here. Do you sell to individuals as well?
Absolutely, I sell to individuals, and what happens is a lot of people will buy it at one of the fairs that are in the area, and then I have my name and address on the label, my name, address, and telephone number on the label, and mm-hmm. I've had so many calls telling me how much people have liked my honey, and I've even received cards that I save from people that saying. Just for instance, the New Haven Farmers Market on Worcester Square in New Haven, I've received so many comments. So one gentleman opened the jar right in front of his children and tasted it and said, "This is the best honey I've ever had," and he gave it to his children, and puts
Isn't
a big
that a
smile.
good feeling?
It's a very good feeling. It is a
nice...
very good feeling, and people just coming back and saying, "I loved your honey,"
mm-hmm.
and they just ask for more,
And knowing that you're the person who's responsible for giving that
right.
to people.
But another thing is just watching the bees, because my bees are in front of a pumpkin field, and I can see the bees going from the hive to the flower, and knowing that those pumpkins are going to be going out and people are going to be buying them, mm-hmm. and it's all and the farmer telling me that because the bees are there, it's a much more quality product. The pumpkins are rounder,
yeah.
They're more plentiful. Just things like that.
If people wanted to contact you or go about getting your honey, can you give us a suggestion as to where they may be able to find it?
Yeah.
A store?
Well, basically, like I said, my name and address and telephone number are on the label. Mm-hmm. My number is area code 203-483-6648. Also, I'm pretty much in all the health food stores in the shoreline, going north on 95. All the way from New Haven to Old Saybrook, there is a farmriverhoney.com, and also you can probably look and find information on thisvideoguide.com also. So those are primarily most of the options that one would have if they want to purchase my honey.
Great. Well, we're running out of time, but I do want to thank you, Jim, for taking the time out of your schedule to meet with us today. I really do appreciate that. And Best of luck to you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and I appreciate the ability to, inform the public about honey, because it is really good for you. It really is. There's no foolproof method for not getting stung. So the beekeeper has to use everything to his advantage to protect himself against getting stung. The thing about it is if a bee, you can develop an allergic reaction to the bees. So it's good to minimize you're getting stung. Basically, I don't ever really get away with no stings at all, but this suit and the smoker help me to minimize me getting stung. If there's a hole, they're gonna find it. So basically, this is a suit, and it has a hood on it that has a netting on it. There's also other different kinds of suits. I think that this is the easiest type to use because it's just zippers and Velcro. Zippers and Velcro. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put this on. We have the zipper down the side, and then we have the Velcro over here, just like that. That'll help for all the bees that get on the ground, that they could walk up. A lot of times, sometimes they get down here anyways. I should have higher boots on. We have a zip, we have a snap, and we can bring the hood over. We have a zip, and we have Velcro in here. I don't normally wear gloves because the bee stings are good for my hands, for my arthritis, so I don't normally wear gloves. But if I did, these are the gloves that I use, and they're pretty darn protective. And they've got a mesh on them so that my hands can breathe, because this leather gets awful sweaty. And so I put the gloves on like this. They're made of leather, and they're pretty good when you're trying to take the frames out of the hives. I don't normally like wearing gloves when I work, but these are pretty supple, and they're pretty manageable for me to really work the bees well. So all right, I'm all suited up. So what's the next step? Well, the next step is I light the smoker. What I do is I take some pine needles here, and I put it, and then I take a match, and this is a bellows. And you slowly put other on there. All right, see, so I'm starting to fill up the smoker. It's starting to go well here. I just keep on filling it up and filling it up, because you'll need every last bit of this smoke if they're in a bad mood. They can be really testy sometimes. Then you put this little spout on there for directional use. There you go, you got your smoker. And I have this smoker over here, which you can see is brand spanking new. But I don't know, even with this hinge broken over here, I mean, it does the trick. It's my trusty little smoker, and I can depend on it to get me the smoke I need when the bees get riled. Now, a lot of times it could just be the weather that riles up the bees. Or either that, or some of them, they just have that bad temperament. They just have the bad temperament, and I have to go in there and I have to smoke them. What this does is this puts out an alert to them, and it's a cool smoke, and it smells It smells good. A lot of people like this smoke. I put this on, I smoke the hive, and the bees go into an alert mode and they fill up with honey, and then basically they can't sting you because they have to bend their abdomen to sting you, and they can't get the stinger into you. So basically that's why I use the smoke. And you know, what we do is we smoke the front entrance first, and then we smoke the top, and this sort of like gives them the awareness. I mean, that the beekeeper is here. Something's going on. And it alerts the guard bees that are down here on the bottom, and it alerts the guard bees that could be up here on the top, and they're just not as aggressive once you get the smoke on there. So that's pretty much it for the smoker. I guess what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to a hive. Either that, or I could show you some frames first. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the inner workings of a hive. So if you will come over here with me as I approach my little bee yard over here. Yeah. So this is what a hive nest frame looks like. And if you see over here, you have a bee with pollen on its legs here, and you have pollen in here, and you have the basically the nest here where the queen has laid all the eggs. And if you could see in here, you'd see that she's already laid, and we've got eggs and larvae already in production here. She's a good queen. She's laying well, and they're getting ready. They're going to start getting ready. They're going to start getting ready for the winter. I'd like to see if I could show you the queen. So if you give me a minute, maybe I can. We're still taking. Oh, this. That's why I needed that for my arthritis. We're still keeping this. We're still looking for the queen here, but these guys are still putting their little nest together. Seem to be doing very well. She's laying. She's doing a wonderful job of laying eggs, and yes sirree, yep, yes sir. I don't know if the camera can pick up the pollen that's in there, or even the larva, but if you could see the orange and the yellow, they're bringing that in, and that's the food. They need the pollen for the eggs and for the bee to develop, so they're bringing that in. so that all the eggs that she's laying can develop into bees. Worker bees. Because I'd say well over 90% of the hive is worker bees, and generally they only use male bees for mating purposes, and in the fall they starve them. That's all they really need the males for, is just for mating. See this? This is a wonderful pattern. She's doing a good job. She probably won't be here because we have all capped brood. We call this brood, and it's all capped brood. This frame here, they're filling it up with all nectar. This is their winter stores right here, and they're filling it all up with nectar. A very important thing for a beekeeper to take into account is the fact that he should have different strains of bees in his bee yard. I have at least 4 or 5 major strains of bees. I have the Webster bee, the Brockman bee, Carniolans, Italians, and Yugoslavians, Yugos. I have some Yugos. So basically all those bees in the bee yard help keep everything moving so that you don't get the same characteristic, and you get more of a hybrid, and they're always working on problems, whether it be with a varroa mite or environmental problems that affect them as a whole. And with all those things going into the melting pot, there's a greater diversity and more of an ability for them to overcome the problems that may be occurring in their existence. Bees eat honey and pollen. Honey provides the bee with the carbohydrate it needs, with the energy it needs, and pollen provides the bee with protein and fat. And there's a constant exchange of food going in the hive at all times. They feed each other all the time. The bees will bring the nectar into the hive and give it to the house bees. And those house bees, I guess, once the honey goes from the outside to the inside, and there's an exchange made, and it receives the bacteria from the inside of the bee that it needs, it becomes nectar. It becomes honey. So that's basically the difference between honey, nectar, and pollen. The pollen is a male germ from plants that the bees bring to the female germ in plants, and that's the pollination process. What I look for is a lot of one different kind of plant. Let's say there's a clover field. I say, well, my bees will probably do pretty well over there. And if I also notice that there may be some dandelion in the spring, I tend to like to put them around some swampy areas, because they need that skunk cabbage pollen in the very early, or pussy willow pollen, to really start giving the bees enough food to start making babies. If you've got enough forage, if you've got enough ability to provide, if you've got enough enough nectar for the bees to gather, then you can put 20 hives. If you don't have that, if it's, let's say it's in just a really wooded area, if it's just in a really wooded area or a forest area, you're not really going to get as much honey as you would if you had it in with an area with fields of clover or fields of loosestrife or fields of goldenrod, which I generally don't get. The goldenrod is a later honey that the bees, I let them have all the goldenrod, and they use that nectar to winter over. But or fields of Japanese knotwood, or big clumps of locust, or big clumps of tulip trees. All that plays an important part in how many hives that I put in one area. One might ask, what does a beekeeper do when the honey harvest is all over and there's all the honey's put away to be bottled? Well, basically what I do is I have to feel the weight of the hives. And if we have light hives, sometimes a hive will produce a lot of honey, but if it hasn't been a good year for the rain, then and there's no forage for them to put into their nest, then I have to feed them. This is a feeder. What I do is I take and I put this on top of the hive, and I put sugar syrup in here that I buy from a rock candy factory. And what happens is that the bees come through here, and if you could see, there's a screen there to help them be a little ladder, and they come through here and they go up inside here. This provides me with protection from getting stung because they can't come through the screen, and they go, they'll take it and they'll even draw out comb like it was nectar, and the hives will get very, very heavy, and they winter over very, very well. The nectar is about 67% sugar solids, so it's like high test for them. Another thing that I do is I take this, it's called an entrance reducer, and after the nectar flow, there's with me feeding them a weaker hive that needs some time to build up. I'll put this in there, and the smaller colony will be able to, they'll have a smaller area that they'll have to protect from a larger colony. And also, when it starts to get very cold at night, mice like to come in and make their home in the back of hives. So this keeps the mice out and keeps the smaller cluster safe until they can build themselves up to be a bigger cluster that they can winter over properly. See, light. Now we've got plenty of oh my God, I'm not putting any more. You're nasty.
Excuse me?
You're nasty.
I'm nasty.
Yes, you are. Okay, let me close this up. Now they're gonna come up and they're gonna bring this syrup downstairs, and they're gonna, just like they would honey or nectar, and they're gonna put it into their cells, and they're gonna store it. Yes, sirree. They certainly are. And that's the end of that one. See? Come on, get out of there. All right, now. Little babies. So I put the feeder on top of here like this, and then I pour in the sugar syrup. Now this will give them some food. I'm just watching to see how much pollen is coming into this hive. It's not bad. Yes. I wish there was a lot more. But we'll see. Let's see what happens. Whereas this hive here. Might be to see how much pollen they're bringing in the hives. It's very, very important around this time of year because she's laying eggs and they need that pollen for protein and fat. That's part of the thing that builds them up and makes strong bees. So I'm just looking to see how much pollen is coming in, and there's bees bringing in pollen. Generally, if you see bees bringing in pollen, you generally know that there's a laying queen in there, generally. If in fact, that's why it's good to have more than one hive in one location, because if you see in one hive that's acting differently than another, that's when you start to investigate, you know. If one hive is a lot more active than the other, one hive's bringing in that isn't responding the way it should be at that period of the season. But it looks like, of course, this is the end of the day, you know.